The whiskey-soaked words of the preacher's wife cut through the Sunday morning air like a blade, loud enough for Katherine to hear every poisonous syllable as she walked past the church steps in Westcliffe, Colorado, in the summer of 1876. Sarah kept her chin high despite the burning in her chest, her worn boots clicking against the wooden planks of the boardwalk while she clutched her basket of mending tighter against her side. She had learned in the 3 months since arriving in this high mountain town that showing weakness only fed the gossips, and the good Christian women of Westcliffe had appetites sharper than any wolf prowling the surrounding peaks. The divorce papers had been finalized in Denver before she made the journey here, hoping the distance from her former life would grant her some measure of peace. Instead, word had traveled faster than any stagecoach, and now every merchant treated her with suspicion. Every mother pulled their daughters away when she passed, and the married women whispered behind gloved hands whenever she dared show her face in public. Her former husband, Charles, had spread lies about her character before releasing her from their union, painting himself as the wounded party when the truth was far uglier. But who would believe a divorced woman over a respected banker? Sarah turned down the narrow alley between the general store and the blacksmith shop, seeking refuge from the stairs. The mountain air was crisp even in August, carrying the scent of pine and the distant promise of early autumn. She leaned against the rough wooden wall, closing her eyes and breathing deeply, trying to calm the trembling in her hands. At 24 years old, she felt ancient, worn down by judgment and isolation. The sound of hoofbeats made her open her eyes. A rider had stopped at the end of the alley, his silhouette backlit by the morning sun. He sat tall in the saddle atop a buckskin horse, his broad-brimmed hat casting shadows across his face. Sarah straightened, prepared to hurry past him, but he dismounted with easy grace and led his horse toward her. "Morning, miss," he said, his voice deep and unhurried. As he came closer, she could make out his features. A strong jaw shadowed with stubble, eyes the color of creek water reflecting the sky, and a nose that looked like it had been broken at least once. He appeared to be in his late 20s, wearing a dusty trail coat over a dark shirt and worn denim pants. A revolver hung at his hip, but his hands remained relaxed at his sides. "You look like you could use some help with that basket." "I am perfectly capable of managing my own burdens, thank you," Sarah replied, her voice sharper than she intended. She had learned not to trust kindness from strangers, especially men. He held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "Did not mean to offend. Just noticed you seemed troubled is all. Name is Marcus Murphy. I am passing through town looking for work. Figured a friendly face might be welcome, but I see I figured wrong." Something in his straightforward manner made Sarah pause. There was no calculation in his gaze, no judgment, just simple observation. "I apologize for my rudeness. This town has not exactly welcomed me with open arms." "Then the town is foolish," Marcus said simply. "I have been in enough places to know that people who spend their energy judging others usually have the most to hide themselves." Sarah felt something crack in her chest, a tiny fissure in the wall she had built around herself. "You do not know anything about me, true enough. But I know what I saw back there. Those women on the church steps, talking loud enough for God himself to hear, they wanted you to feel small." He shook his head. "Takes a certain kind of mean to kick someone when they are already down. You heard what they were saying." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks, shame and anger mixing together. "Enough to know they were being unkind. Whatever your story is, it brought you here. That is all that matters now, not where you came from or what you left behind." Marcus reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a canteen. "Water. It is fresh from the creek this morning." Sarah hesitated, then accepted the canteen with a small nod of thanks. The water was cold and sweet, and she realized how thirsty she had been. "You are very forward with strangers, Mr. Murphy." "Marcus, please." "And yes, I suppose I am. Life is too short to dance around things. I see someone who looks like they could use a friendly word, I give it. No strings, no expectations." He leaned against the opposite wall, giving her space. "What kind of work do you do, if you do not mind my asking?" "I take in mending and washing. Not much, but it keeps me fed." Sarah handed the canteen back. "Though even that is getting harder. Women keep finding excuses to take their business elsewhere." Marcus frowned. "That is a hard way to live. There must be other work available." "Not for a woman like me." The bitterness crept into her voice despite her best efforts. "The hotel will not hire me. The restaurant turned me away. Even the laundry service said they had enough help, though I know for a fact they are looking for workers. Being divorced makes me worse than a common criminal in the eyes of this town." "That is ridiculous. That is reality." Sarah pushed away from the wall, suddenly exhausted. "I should go. Thank you for the water and for your kindness, but I have learned that association with me only brings trouble to others. You should find your work and forget you met me." Marcus straightened, his expression thoughtful. "What if I told you I might have work for both of us?" Sarah stopped. "What do you mean?" "I was planning to head up to one of the mining camps in the mountains. They are always looking for cooks, and they pay well. Money is good up there because the work is hard and the conditions are rough, so they need to attract people. They care more about whether you can do the job than about your past." He adjusted his hat. "I know the foreman at the Silver Bell operation. Good man, fair. He would hire you if I vouched for you. You just met me. Why would you vouch for me?" "Because I have a sense about people. Always have. And my sense tells me you are a hard worker who has been dealt a bad hand." Marcus met her eyes steadily. "Also, because everyone deserves a second chance. Or in your case, maybe just a first chance to prove yourself without people judging you for things that are not their business." Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes but forced them back. "I do not need your pity." "Good, because I am not offering any. I am offering work. Real work with real pay. But it is up to you. I am heading out tomorrow morning at dawn. If you want to come, meet me at the livery stable. If not, I wish you well and I hope things get better for you here." Marcus touched the brim of his hat in farewell and turned to lead his horse away. "Wait," Sarah called out. He looked back. "Why are you really doing this?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "Because someone did the same for me once, when I needed it most. Figured it was time to pass that kindness forward." With that, he continued down the alley, leaving Sarah standing there with her thoughts whirling like autumn leaves in the wind. She spent the rest of that day in her small rented room above the seamstress shop, the only place that would give her lodging. The room was barely large enough for a narrow bed and a washstand, but it was hers, purchased with the money she had saved from her mending work. She sat on the bed and considered Marcus Murphy's offer from every angle, looking for the trap, the hidden expectation, the price she would eventually be asked to pay. But try as she might, she could not find it. His offer had been straightforward, his manner honest, and what did she have to lose? Staying in Westcliffe meant slow starvation, both of body and spirit. The women would never accept her, the merchants would continue to turn her away, and eventually she would run out of money entirely. Then what? She had no family to return to, her parents having disowned her when she divorced Charles. Her younger sister had written once, a brief note filled with platitudes and disappointment, making it clear that Sarah had brought shame to the family name. As the sun set behind the mountain peaks, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Sarah made her decision. She packed her few belongings into a worn carpet bag. 2 dresses, undergarments, her sewing kit, a book of poetry her mother had given her before cutting ties, and the divorce papers she kept as proof of her freedom, no matter how bitter that freedom tasted. She slept poorly, waking several times in the night, second-guessing herself. But when dawn broke pale and cold over the mountains, she dressed in her sturdiest dress, tied her dark blonde hair back with a simple ribbon, and carried her bag down the narrow stairs. The seamstress, Mrs. Whitmore, was already at her sewing machine. "Leaving, are you?" the older woman asked without looking up. "Yes, thank you for the room. Rent is paid through the week. I will not be giving you back the difference." "I did not expect you to." Sarah set the room key on the counter. "Goodbye, Mrs. Whitmore." The older woman finally looked up, her expression softening slightly. "You are making a mistake going off with a strange man. Staying here is the bigger mistake. At least this way I am choosing my own path." Sarah walked through the quiet streets of Westcliffe, past the buildings that had never felt like home, toward the livery stable at the edge of town. Morning mist clung to the ground, and her breath came out in small clouds. She half expected Marcus Murphy to not be there, for the whole thing to have been some cruel joke. But he was there, his buckskin horse saddled and ready, along with a gray mare that stood patiently beside it. Marcus looked up as she approached, and a genuine smile crossed his face. "I hoped you would come. You got me a horse." Sarah stared at the gray mare in surprise. "Borrowed her from the livery. I will buy her once we get paid at the camp. You can ride." "Yes. My father taught me when I was young." Sarah approached the mare, running a hand along her neck. The horse was older but looked well cared for, with kind eyes and a gentle disposition. Marcus helped her secure her carpetbag to the saddle, then assisted her in mounting. His hands were respectful, his touch brief and impersonal. Once she was settled, he swung up onto his own horse with practiced ease. "It is a hard ride, about 5 hours up into the mountains. We will take it slow. Let me know if you need to stop and rest." Marcus turned his horse toward the trail that led up into the pine-covered slopes. They rode out of Westcliffe as the sun fully cleared the horizon, and Sarah did not look back. The town had nothing for her but pain and judgment. Whatever lay ahead, it had to be better than what she was leaving behind. The trail was steep and winding, following a creek that rushed and tumbled over smooth stones. The air grew thinner as they climbed, and Sarah found herself breathing harder. Marcus kept his horse at an easy pace, occasionally pointing out landmarks or wildlife. He spotted an elk in the distance, its antlers magnificent against the green of the forest. A hawk circled overhead, riding the thermal currents. "How long have you been in Colorado?" Sarah asked after they had been riding for over an hour. "About 3 years now. Came out from Missouri after the war." Marcus kept his eyes on the trail ahead. Needed a fresh start somewhere new. The past was weighing too heavy. "You fought in the war." "I did. Both my brothers died at Shiloh. I survived, though there were times I wished I had not." His voice was matter of fact, but Sarah heard the old pain underneath. "But time keeps moving forward whether we are ready or not. Eventually, I realized I could either let the grief drown me or I could find something worth living for." "What did you find?" Marcus glanced at her with a slight smile. "Still looking, I suppose, but the looking is better than the drowning." They stopped around midday beside the creek, letting the horses drink and rest. Marcus pulled out supplies from his saddlebag: bread, cheese, dried apples, and jerky. They ate in companionable silence, sitting on sun-warmed rocks beside the rushing water. "Tell me about the mining camp," Sarah said, breaking off a piece of bread. "What should I expect?" "It is rough, no question. About 60 men working the mine, living in tents and rough cabins." They work long hours, hard labor, and when they come back they are tired, hungry, and sore. The current cook quit last week, according to what I heard in town. Food has been terrible, just basic beans and biscuits. They are desperate for someone who can make decent meals. Marcus bit into an apple. The men are rough around the edges, but they follow the foreman's rules. No fighting in camp, no harassment of workers. Anyone who causes trouble gets sent down the mountain without pay. It keeps things relatively civil. And you trust this foreman, Miles Morrison? Yeah, I trust him. We worked together on a different mining operation a year back. He is strict but fair. When I sent word I was coming, he said he had work for me as a guard. The mine has had some trouble with claim jumpers and thieves. My job will be to help keep watch, make sure the ore shipments get down the mountain safely. Sarah absorbed this information. Have you done that kind of work before? Some. I am good with a gun and I do not scare easy. That is usually enough. Marcus stood and stretched. We should keep moving. Want to get there before dark. The afternoon riding was harder. The trail grew steeper, winding through dense stands of pine and aspen. Sarah's legs ached from gripping the horse and her back protested the long hours in the saddle, but she did not complain. Marcus checked on her regularly, offering encouragement and pointing out that they were getting close. Finally, as the sun was lowering toward the western peaks, they crested a ridge and looked down into a small valley. The mining camp spread below them, a collection of tents, wooden structures, and equipment clustered around the dark mouth of a mine shaft. Smoke rose from several fire pits, and Sarah could see men moving about, finishing their workday. There it is. The Silver Bell, Marcus said. Home for the foreseeable future. They rode down into the camp as the dinner bell was ringing. Men emerged from the mine entrance, covered in dust and exhaustion. They stared openly at Sarah as she and Marcus rode past, but there was more curiosity than hostility in their gazes. They were too tired and too hungry to be threatening. Marcus led them to a large cabin near the center of the camp. A man emerged as they dismounted, tall and broad-shouldered with graying hair and a thick beard. His eyes were sharp and assessing. Marcus Murphy, as I live and breathe. You actually showed up. The man's voice was deep and gravelly. Said I would, Miles. I keep my word. Marcus shook the man's hand firmly. Brought you a cook, too. This is Sarah Katherine. She is a hard worker and she needs a fair chance. Miles Morrison looked Sarah over with a frankness that might have been offensive if not for the lack of judgment in his expression. You can cook for 60 hungry miners, Miss Katherine. I can cook. Whether it will be to their taste, I cannot promise, but I will work hard and do my best. Sarah met his gaze steadily. Miles grunted, something that might have been approval. Fair enough. We have not had a decent meal in a week. The bar is set low. Come on, I will show you the kitchen. The kitchen was a large structure with a wood-burning stove, several work tables, and shelves stocked with basic supplies. Flour, beans, salt pork, dried vegetables, coffee, and various spices. It was crude but functional. Miles explained the routine. Breakfast at dawn, lunch brought to the mine entrance at midday, dinner at sunset. She would have help from 2 young men who rotated duties, mainly hauling water and washing dishes. We can pay $30 a month plus room and board, Miles said. Room is a small cabin behind the kitchen. Nothing fancy, but it is private and secure. You will have a lock on the door, and anyone who bothers you will be out of this camp so fast their head will spin. Understood. Understood. Thank you. $30 was more than she had made in 3 months in Westcliffe. Miles showed her the cabin, which was indeed small but clean. It had a narrow bed, a stove for heat, and a washstand. Compared to her cramped room above the seamstress shop, it felt palatial. She set down her carpetbag and turned to find Marcus standing in the doorway. "You need anything else, you let me know," he said. "I will be bunking with the other guards on the north side of camp, not far if you need help. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. You did not have to do this." Sarah felt a surge of gratitude so strong it almost overwhelmed her. "Sure I did. It was the right thing to do." He touched his hat brim in that now familiar gesture. "Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow you can show these miners what real cooking tastes like." After he left, Sarah sat on the bed and let herself feel the exhaustion of the day. Her body ached, her mind was reeling, but underneath it all was something she had not felt in a very long time: hope. Maybe here in this rough camp far from civilization, she could finally start over. Maybe here no one would care about her past. The next morning came too early. Sarah woke in the darkness, disoriented until she remembered where she was. She dressed quickly in the cold mountain air, lit the lantern, and made her way to the kitchen. The two helpers Marcus had mentioned were already there. Young men named Tom and Ben, both 18 and eager to please. "What do you need, miss?" Tom asked, a gangly boy with red hair and freckles. Sarah assessed the available supplies and made quick decisions. "I need water boiling, lots of it. And get me that salt pork, the flour, and those dried apples. We are making something better than beans for breakfast." She worked quickly, her hands remembering skills from years of cooking for her former household. She made biscuits from scratch, fried salt pork until it was crispy, created a gravy that was rich and savory, and cooked the dried apples with a little sugar and cinnamon she found in the spice stores. Coffee boiled in large pots, strong and dark. When the men lined up for breakfast, the smells drew them faster than the bell. Sarah watched nervously as the first miners took their plates and tasted her cooking. The silence was deafening for a moment, then one man let out a whoop of appreciation. "Now that is real food." The mood in the camp transformed. Men who had been sullen and complaining were suddenly smiling, going back for seconds despite the rule that portions were limited. Miles Morrison came through the line last, and after trying the biscuits and gravy, he gave Sarah a rare smile. "You will do just fine, Miss Katherine, just fine." Marcus came through with the other guards, and when he reached Sarah, his eyes were warm with approval. "Told Miles you were a hard worker." "You took a gamble on a stranger," Sarah said quietly, serving him a generous portion. "Best gambles I have ever made were on people everyone else overlooked." He took his plate and found a seat, and Sarah tried to ignore how her heart had skipped when he smiled at her. The days fell into a rhythm. Sarah woke before dawn, cooked 3 meals a day, and managed her kitchen with efficiency that impressed even Miles. She learned to make the supplies stretch, to create variety from limited ingredients, to feed hungry men who worked brutal hours in dangerous conditions. The miners treated her with respect, kept their language clean around her, and often thanked her for the meals. It was such a stark contrast to Westcliffe that Sarah sometimes felt like she was living in a dream. Marcus was often in the camp, though his duties sometimes took him down the mountain with ore shipments or up into the surrounding hills on patrol. But when he was there, he made a point of talking with Sarah. Small conversations at first, about the weather, the camp, the work. Gradually, they grew more personal. One evening, about 3 weeks after arriving at the camp, Sarah was cleaning up after dinner when Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Need any help?" "I thought guards did not do kitchen work," Sarah teased, surprised at how comfortable she felt around him. "Guards do whatever needs doing." Marcus rolled up his sleeves and started hauling water for washing dishes. Tom and Ben had already left for the evening, and the kitchen was empty except for the two of them. They worked in companionable silence for a while, then Marcus asked, "Are you happy here?" Sarah considered the question. More content than I have been in years. It is strange, feeling safe in a mining camp in the middle of the mountains, but I do. These men judge me on my cooking, not my past. It is refreshing. You have never told me what happened. Your past, I mean. You do not have to, Marcus added quickly. But if you want to talk about it, I am willing to listen. Sarah dried her hands on her apron, suddenly nervous. But something in Marcus's steady presence made her want to share, to finally tell someone the truth. I was married to a banker in Denver. Charles Kenneth. On the surface, he was respectable, successful, charming. In private, he was cruel, not physically, at least not at first, but words can cut just as deep as fists. Marcus's expression darkened, but he remained silent, letting her continue. He told me I was worthless, stupid, and embarrassment. He controlled every aspect of my life, what I wore, where I went, who I spoke to. I believed him for a long time. I thought I was the problem. Sarah's voice was steady now, the words coming easier. Then one night, he came home drunk and angry about some business deal that fell through. He hit me, broke my cheekbone. When I looked in the mirror the next morning and saw my face swollen and bruised, something woke up in me, some part of me that refused to die. What did you do? Marcus's voice was quiet but intense. I went to a lawyer, used money I had hidden away from household funds, filed for divorce on grounds of cruelty. Charles was furious. He spread terrible lies about me to everyone who would listen. Said I was unfaithful, that I was a drunk, that I was mentally unstable. Most people believed him. I lost all my friends, what few I had. My family sided with him, said I was bringing shame to them by divorcing. Sarah met Marcus's eyes. But I did not care, I was free. That was worth everything else. Marcus set down the pot he had been scrubbing and turned to face her fully. You are one of the bravest people I have ever met. Sarah laughed, but it came out shaky. I do not feel brave. Most days I feel terrified. Bravery is not about not being scared. It is about doing what needs to be done despite the fear. Marcus took a step closer. Your past brought you here, Sarah, to this mountain, to this camp, to this moment. I know you have been hurt, and I know you have every reason not to trust anyone, especially men. But I want you to know that I think you are remarkable, and if you ever need a friend, someone to talk to or just sit with in silence, I am here. Sarah felt tears gather in her eyes. Why are you so kind to me? Because you deserve kindness. Because the world has been cruel enough to you already. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently squeezed her hand. And maybe because I am a selfish man who wants to spend time with someone who makes him feel like there is still good in this world. The touch of his hand was warm and solid, and Sarah did not pull away. Instead, she held on, letting herself feel the connection, the spark of something new and fragile and precious. Over the following weeks, Sarah and Marcus grew closer. They found reasons to be near each other. Marcus helping in the kitchen when his duties allowed, Sarah walking with him on his evening patrols around the camp perimeter. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories from their pasts, their hopes for the future, their fears and dreams. Sarah learned that Marcus had grown up on a farm in Missouri, the youngest of 3 brothers. His family had been torn apart by the war, his father dying of grief after losing 2 sons. Marcus had drifted for years, unable to settle, haunted by memories of battle and loss. Coming west had been his attempt to outrun the past, but he was learning that some things could not be outrun, only accepted and integrated into who you became. Marcus learned that Sarah loved poetry, that she had dreamed of becoming a teacher before her marriage, that she had a quick wit and a sharp mind that Charles had tried to dull. He saw the woman she had been before the world tried to break her, and he also saw the stronger woman she was becoming, forged in the fire of her trials. One cool September evening, they sat together on a log outside the kitchen, watching the stars emerge over the mountain peaks. The camp was quiet, most men already asleep in preparation for another grueling day in the mine. "You ever think about leaving here?" Sarah asked. "Going somewhere else, starting something different?" "Sometimes. This kind of work, guarding mines, is not something I want to do forever." Marcus stretched out his legs. "I have been saving my pay, thinking maybe I could get some land, run a small ranch, nothing big, just enough to make a living, some cattle, maybe horses." "That sounds nice, peaceful." "It does it not?" Marcus turned to look at her, his expression serious. "Sarah, I need to tell you something, and I hope it does not scare you off." Sarah's heart began to race. "What is it?" "I have feelings for you. Real feelings. I think about you all the time. When I am out on patrol, I am thinking about getting back to camp so I can see you. When I am trying to sleep, you are my last thought before I drift off." Marcus took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her skin. "I know we have not known each other long. I know you have been hurt and you have every reason to be cautious, but I had to tell you. I could not keep pretending I just see you as a friend." Sarah's breath caught. She had known on some level that her feelings for Marcus were growing into something more than friendship, but hearing him say it out loud made it real, immediate, and terrifying. "I am scared," she whispered. "I am scared of trusting again, of being hurt again, of losing myself in someone else. I would never ask you to lose yourself. I like you exactly as you are, strong, smart, independent. I do not want to control you or change you." Marcus brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I just want to be part of your life if you will have me. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people figuring things out together." Sarah looked into his eyes, those creek water eyes that had been kind from the very first moment she met him. She thought about how he had given her a chance when no one else would, how he had respected her boundaries, how he made her feel safe and valued. She thought about the way her heart lifted when she saw him, the way she laughed more easily in his presence, the way she was starting to imagine a future that included him. "I have feelings for you too," she said finally. "It scares me how much I have come to care about you in such a short time. But it is real. You are real and this is real, and I do not want to run from it." Marcus's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "You do not know how happy that makes me." He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When his lips met hers, the kiss was gentle, reverent, full of promise. Sarah felt something inside her unfold, a part of her that had been locked away opening to the possibility of love again. When they broke apart, she was trembling. "That was my first real kiss," she said softly. "Charles never kissed me like that, like I was something precious." Marcus cupped her face gently. "You are precious. To me, you are everything." They sat together under the stars, holding hands, talking quietly until the cold drove them back to their separate cabins. But everything had changed. The air felt different, charged with new energy. Sarah lay in bed that night, touching her lips, remembering the kiss, and for the first time in years, she let herself believe that happiness might be possible. The next months passed in a blur of work and stolen moments. Sarah and Marcus kept their relationship relatively quiet, not from shame, but from a desire to protect something precious from the rough world around them. They found ways to be together. Early morning walks before the camp woke, evening conversations after dinner, occasional trips down the mountain to Westcliffe for supplies where they could walk together without an audience. The change in Sarah was visible. She smiled more, laughed easily, moved with a lightness that had been absent before. The miners noticed and approved. They liked seeing their cook happy, and they respected Marcus for treating her well. Miles Morrison, observant as ever, pulled Marcus aside one day. "You planning on making an honest woman of her?" he asked bluntly. Marcus did not bother denying the relationship. "Planning on asking her when the time is right. Want to have something to offer her first. Land, a home, a future." Miles nodded. "Good man. She deserves that, you both do." Winter came early to the mountains that year. By late October, snow was falling regularly, and the mine operated on reduced hours as the weather made work more difficult. Sarah adapted her cooking to the cold, making hearty stews and thick soups that warmed the men from the inside out. Marcus and the other guards worked harder, ensuring the camp remained secure even as the snow drifts grew higher. On a particularly cold evening in early November, Marcus came to Sarah's cabin with news. "Miles is closing the mine for winter in 2 weeks. It is too dangerous to keep working with the heavy snows coming. Most of the men will head down to the valley towns until spring." Sarah felt a jolt of anxiety. "What about us? What about our jobs? Miles is keeping a small crew here to maintain the site and guard the equipment. He asked me to stay on as head of the winter guard. There will only be about 10 of us here total." Marcus took her hands. "He also said if you want to stay, he will keep you on to cook for the winter crew. But Sarah, it will be hard. We will be snowed in for weeks at a time. Supplies will be limited. It will be isolated and cold. What is the alternative? You could go to Denver for the winter. I have enough saved to give you money for lodging and expenses. You could be warm and comfortable in a city." Marcus looked troubled. "I do not like the thought of you being stuck up here in harsh conditions." Sarah thought about Denver, about returning to the city where she had been married and divorced, where Charles's lies might still echo. She thought about being separated from Marcus for months. Then she thought about the cabin that had become home, the kitchen where she had rebuilt her confidence, the mountains that had given her refuge. "I want to stay," she said firmly. "If you will be here, I want to be here too. We will face the winter together." Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "I was hoping you would say that. I do not want to be apart from you either." The mine closed as planned. Most of the workers departed, heading down the mountain with their season's wages. The camp felt eerily empty with so few people remaining. Besides Sarah and Marcus, there were 8 other men. Miles Morrison, 4 guards and 3 maintenance workers. They settled into the new rhythm, preparing for the long winter ahead. The first major storm hit in late November. Snow fell for 3 days straight, piling up higher than the cabin windows. The world became a white expanse, beautiful and dangerous. The small crew worked together to keep paths clear, to ensure the cabins remained warm, to protect the mine equipment from damage. Sarah had less cooking to do with fewer men to feed, which gave her more time with Marcus. They spent long evenings together in her cabin or his, talking by the firelight, reading aloud from her poetry book, playing cards, or simply sitting in comfortable silence. The intimacy of those winter nights deepened their bond. Marcus was patient and respectful, never pushing for more than Sarah was ready to give, but the attraction between them grew stronger with each passing day. One night in December, with a blizzard howling outside, Marcus asked Sarah about her dreams for the future. "I want a home," she said quietly. "A real home, not just a rented room or a cabin in a mining camp. I want land and animals and a garden. I want to wake up in the morning and know that where I am is mine, that no one can take it away from me." "What about family? Do you want children?" Marcus asked carefully. Sarah was silent for a long moment. "I used to think I did. When I was first married, I hoped for children. But Charles said I was too incompetent to be a mother, that any child of mine would be as useless as I was. After a while, I stopped hoping." She looked at Marcus. "But now, with you, I am starting to hope again. If I were to have children, I would want them with someone kind, someone who would be a good father, Someone like you. Marcus's eyes were suspiciously bright in the firelight. I would be honored to have a family with you, Sarah, when the time is right, when we are ready. Marcus Murphy, are you proposing to me? Sarah asked, half teasing, half serious. Not yet. When I propose, it will be proper. I will have a ring and land and a plan for our future. You deserve that. Marcus took her hands. But I am promising you that I will propose. That I want to marry you and build a life with you. You are it for me, Sarah. You are the one I have been looking for without even knowing I was searching. Sarah felt tears slide down her cheeks, but for once they were happy tears. I love you. I do not think I even knew what love really was until I met you. I love you too. More than I can put into words. Marcus wiped away her tears gently. We will have everything we dream of. I promise you that. They kissed, and the kiss deepened into something more passionate than before. When Marcus pulled back, his breathing was ragged. Sarah, I want you, but I will not do anything you are not ready for. We can wait until we are married. Sarah thought about the years of her marriage to Charles, where intimacy had been mechanical and cold, something that happened to her rather than with her. She thought about how different everything was with Marcus, how safe she felt, how desired in a way that was affirming rather than degrading. I do not want to wait, she whispered. I want to choose this, choose you, choose us. I want to know what it feels like to be with someone who loves me. Marcus searched her eyes, making sure she was certain. Whatever he saw there satisfied him. Are you absolutely sure? I am sure. That night, they became lovers in the truest sense. Marcus was gentle and patient, attentive to her reactions, making sure she felt pleasure and joy. It was everything intimacy should be, and nothing like what Sarah had experienced before. Afterward, lying in his arms with the firelight casting dancing shadows on the walls, she felt more whole than she had in her entire life. The winter months were hard but wonderful. The small crew became like a family, sharing meals and stories, and the work of surviving in harsh conditions. Sarah's cooking kept everyone's spirits up. Marcus's leadership and calm demeanor kept tensions from rising despite the close quarters and isolation. Miles observed it all with approval, already making plans for the spring. In late February, the winter began to loosen its grip. The days grew longer, the temperatures slightly warmer. One clear, cold morning, Marcus asked Sarah to walk with him to the ridge above the camp. They bundled up against the cold and made the trek through snow that was beginning to compact and melt. At the ridge, they could see for miles. The mountains stretched endlessly, peaks white with snow, valleys dark with pine forests. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the sun was bright enough to make them squint. Sarah Katherine, Marcus began, taking her hands in his. I do not have a ring yet. I did not want to order one without you choosing it, but I have this. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. It is a deed. I bought land in the valley below Westcliffe, 40 acres with a creek running through it, good soil and access to mounting grazing for cattle. I bought it with the money I saved this winter. Sarah's heart began to pound. I want to build a house on that land. I want to raise cattle and horses. I want to make a life there. Marcus knelt in the snow, still holding her hands. And I want to do all of it with you. Sarah, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my love for the rest of our days? Sarah did not even have to think. Yes. Yes, Marcus, I will marry you. He stood and swept her into his arms, spinning her around while she laughed with pure joy. When he set her down, they kissed under the bright winter sun, sealing their promise to each other. They returned to camp and shared the news with the crew. Miles produced a bottle of whiskey he had been saving for a special occasion, and the small group celebrated with toasts and congratulations. Even in the middle of winter in an isolated mining camp, there was joy and hope. When spring finally arrived in full force, the mine reopened. Workers returned, operations resumed, and Sarah went back to cooking for 60 men. But now there was a lightness to everything, a sense of anticipation. She wore a simple gold band that Marcus had bought during a supply run, a temporary ring until they could choose a proper one together. They set their wedding date for May, giving them time to prepare. Sarah sewed herself a new dress, pale blue with white trim. Marcus bought a new suit from the general store in Westcliffe. Miles agreed to host the wedding at the camp, and the miners were excited about having a celebration. On a bright May morning, with wildflowers blooming across the mountain meadows, Sarah and Marcus were married. A circuit preacher who traveled through the mining camps performed the ceremony. The miners stood as witnesses, dressed in their cleanest clothes. Miles gave Sarah away, a gesture that touched her deeply. When the preacher said, "You may kiss your bride," Marcus did so with such tenderness that several hardened miners had to wipe their eyes. The celebration afterward was raucous and joyful, with music and dancing and the best food Sarah could prepare. For one perfect day, the hard world of the mining camp transformed into something magical. That night, in the cabin that was now officially theirs until they could move to the new land, Sarah and Marcus began their married life. Everything felt different now, sanctioned and blessed. The future spread before them like the mountain valleys in spring. They stayed at the camp through the summer, both continuing their work and saving as much money as possible. Every spare moment was spent planning their future home, how many rooms, where to put the barn, what kind of cattle to raise. Marcus consulted with local ranchers, learning everything he could. Sarah collected recipes and ideas for a proper kitchen. In late August, they gave notice to Miles. It was bittersweet leaving the place that had brought them together, but they were ready for the next chapter. The miners threw them a farewell party, presenting them with gifts, tools for building, supplies for the new home, even a pair of breeding heifers from Miles himself. "You two are good people," Miles said gruffly, shaking Marcus's hand and kissing Sarah's cheek. "You deserve every happiness. If you ever need anything, you let me know." They traveled down the mountain with their possessions loaded on a wagon Marcus had purchased. The 40 acres of land lay in a broad valley near Westcliffe, with views of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains to the west. A creek rang clear and cold through the property, and the grass was thick and green. They lived in a tent while Marcus began building their house. Sarah cooked over an open fire and helped with the construction when she could. It was hard work, but they were doing it together, building something that was entirely theirs. Local ranchers, curious about the new neighbors, stopped by to offer advice and occasionally lend a hand. Word spread about Marcus and Sarah, about their story and their love, and people responded with kindness. One day in September, as Marcus was framing the roof, a buggy pulled up. Sarah looked up from the garden plot she was preparing and recognized the driver as the preacher from Westcliffe. Her heart sank, expecting judgment, but the preacher smiled warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Murphy, I hope I am not intruding. I heard you were building out here and wanted to welcome you properly to our community." He produced a basket. "My wife sent bread and preserves. She also wanted me to tell you that the Ladies' Aid Society would be happy to have you join them, Mrs. Murphy, if you are interested." Sarah was stunned. "But they know I am divorced. They know my past. They know you are a hard-working woman who married a good man. They know you survived something difficult and came out stronger." The preacher's eyes were kind. "Not everyone in Westcliffe was cruel to you, Mrs. Murphy. Many of us felt shame at how you were treated. We would like to make amends if you will let us." Sarah felt Marcus's hand on her shoulder supporting her. She thought about holding on to anger versus choosing to move forward. "I would like that. Thank you." After the preacher left, Sarah cried, but this time from relief and release. The past was finally, truly behind her. She was no longer the divorced woman who had been shamed and scorned. She was Sarah Murphy, wife of Marcus Murphy, owner of a beautiful piece of land and a full member of the community. The house was completed by late October, just before the first winter snows. It was modest but well built. 3 rooms downstairs, including a kitchen, sitting room and bedroom with a loft above for future expansion. Marcus built Sarah a proper stove and even managed to include a window that looked out toward the mountains. The first night they spent in their completed home, they lit the fireplace and sat together on the floor, too excited to bother with furniture they did not yet have. "We did it," Sarah said, leaning against Marcus's shoulder. "We actually did it. We did. This is ours, all of it. No one can take it away." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I am so proud of us." That winter was easier than the one before, snug in their new home with supplies they had carefully stockpiled. They spent the long evenings planning for spring. Where to plant crops, how to expand the herd, improvements to make to the property. They also spent those evenings growing closer in every way, their love deepening with each passing day. In February, Sarah realized she was pregnant. The discovery filled her with conflicting emotions: joy, excitement, and a lingering fear from Charles's cruel words about her ability to be a mother. When she told Marcus, his reaction was uncomplicated delight. "We are going to have a baby. Sarah, that is wonderful." "That is the best news I could imagine. Are you sure? I mean, what if Charles was right? What if I am not capable?" The old doubts surfaced. Marcus took her face in his hands, making her look at him. "Charles was a cruel, small-minded man who tried to destroy you because your strength threatened him. Nothing he said was true. You will be an amazing mother, just like you are an amazing wife, an amazing cook, an amazing builder, an amazing partner. Our child will be so lucky to have you." His absolute confidence bolstered her own. "I am scared, but I am also happy. I never thought I would get to have this. A real home, a loving husband, a child on the way. It feels like too much happiness, like it might be taken away. It will not be taken away. This is real, and it is permanent, and it is ours." Marcus placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "We are going to be parents. We are going to raise our child with love and kindness. We are going to give them everything we did not have." Spring came again to the valley. The grass greened, the creek ran high with snowmelt, and Sarah's belly began to swell with new life. She worked as much as she could, preparing the house for the baby, while Marcus expanded their herd and planted their first crops. Neighbors came by regularly now, bringing gifts and advice. The Ladies' Aid Society made baby clothes. The local ranchers offered help with the cattle. Sarah had been absorbed fully into the community, no longer the outcast but a respected member. She had proven herself through hard work, kindness, and the obvious love between her and Marcus. People saw the life they were building and wanted to be part of it. In late September, after a long and difficult labor attended by the midwife and several women from the Ladies' Aid Society, Sarah gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Marcus was there, holding her hand through it all, and when he first held his son, the expression on his face was one of pure wonder. "He is perfect," Marcus whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Sarah, look at him. Look at what we made." They named him Samuel Marcus Murphy. He had his father's eyes and his mother's determination, making his presence known with lusty cries that filled the house. Sarah was exhausted but happier than she had ever been. Holding her son, with Marcus beside her, she felt like her life had finally come full circle. All the pain, all the struggle, had led to this perfect moment. The first year of Samuel's life was both exhausting and wonderful. Sarah learned to balance caring for an infant with managing the household. Marcus was a devoted father, taking Samuel on rounds of the property, talking to him like he understood every word. The baby thrived, growing strong and healthy. More neighbors came by now, wanting to meet the baby. Sarah became friends with several women in the area, relationships built on genuine affection rather than obligation. She was invited to quilting bays and church socials. She and Marcus attended community dances and harvest festivals. They were no longer outsiders but full participants in the life of the valley. On Samuel's first birthday, they threw a party. The house and yard were filled with friends and neighbors celebrating. As Sarah watched Marcus play with Samuel while talking with the local ranchers, she felt overwhelming gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. Later that evening, after everyone had left and Samuel was asleep, Sarah and Marcus sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. "You ever think about Westcliffe, about how bad things were?" Marcus asked. "Sometimes, but not with anger anymore. If I had not been shamed by that town, I might never have taken your offer to come to the camp. We might never have met." Sarah took his hand. "Everything that happened, all the pain and struggle, it brought me to you, and that makes it worth it." Marcus brought her hand to his lips. "Your past brought you here, to this porch, this home, this life, and I thank God for it every single day." "Do you think we will have more children?" Sarah asked. "I hope so. If you want them, I would love to fill this house with kids." Marcus smiled. "Maybe a little girl next time. She would be beautiful like her mother. Or another boy, strong like his father." Sarah rested her head on Marcus's shoulder. "Whatever we have, whoever they are, they will be loved. That is what matters." Over the next few years, their ranch prospered. Marcus proved to be an excellent cattleman, and their herd grew steadily. Sarah managed the household and helped with the ranch work when needed. Samuel grew into a bright, curious toddler who followed his father everywhere. When Samuel was 3, Sarah gave birth to a second child, a girl they named Mary Sarah Murphy. She was smaller than Samuel had been, with dark hair and a quiet disposition. Samuel was initially suspicious of the new addition, but quickly became a protective big brother. 2 years after Mary came another boy, whom they named Thomas Miles Murphy after Sarah's helper at the mining camp and Miles Morrison, who had given them both their start. Thomas was loud and energetic from the first moment, keeping everyone on their toes. With 3 young children, life was chaotic but full of love. The house they had built was expanded with additional rooms. The ranch continued to grow, earning a reputation for quality cattle. Marcus hired a few hands to help with the work, and Sarah occasionally hired local girls to help with the house and children. Through it all, Sarah and Marcus's love remained the foundation of everything. They still made time for each other, stealing moments alone when they could, talking long into the night after the children were asleep. The attraction and passion between them never faded. If anything, it grew stronger as the years passed. One evening when Samuel was 10, Mary was 7, and Thomas was 5, the family gathered for dinner. It was a chaotic meal with Thomas telling elaborate stories, Mary quietly observing everything, and Samuel trying to act grown up. After the children were in bed, Sarah and Marcus sat together as they always did. "Can you believe this is our life?" Sarah asked. "Sometimes I still feel like I am going to wake up and find out it was all a dream. It is real, all of it. We built this together." Marcus looked around their home at the evidence of their life together. "You know what the best part is? Watching you be a mother. Seeing you with the kids, the way you love them and guide them. It makes me fall in love with you all over again every single day. They are lucky to have you as a father. You are patient and kind, and you teach them what really matters." Sarah smiled. I am lucky too. Lucky that I was brave enough to meet you at that livery stable. Lucky that you saw something worth saving in a divorced woman everyone else had given up on. I saw the truth of who you were, strong, capable, resilient. You did not need saving, Sarah, you just needed a fair chance. Marcus pulled her close. And I am the lucky one. I was drifting, no purpose, no direction. You gave me a reason to build something permanent. You gave me a home. They sat together in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds through the open window, crickets chirping, cattle lowing in the distance, an owl hooting from the nearby trees. You have any regrets? Sarah asked quietly. Marcus thought for a moment. I regret the years before I met you, the time I wasted being lost and aimless. But I do not regret any moment since that day in Westcliffe when I saw you in that alley looking so sad and brave at the same time. Every moment since then has been a gift. I regret staying with Charles as long as I did. I regret not believing in myself sooner, but I do not regret the divorce, even though it was hard. It set me free to find you, to find this life. Sarah kissed him softly. I love you, Marcus Murphy. More today than yesterday, more tomorrow than today. And I love you, Sarah Murphy, my wife, my partner, the mother of my children, the keeper of my heart. Marcus returned the kiss with the passion that had never diminished between them. As the years continued to pass, the Murphy Ranch became one of the most successful in the valley. Samuel grew into a responsible young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Mary became interested in teaching, spending hours with her books and helping educate the younger children in the community. Thomas was the wild one, always getting into scrapes but with a good heart underneath the mischief. Sarah and Marcus aged together, gray appearing in their hair, lines forming around their eyes from years of laughter and hard work. They watched their children grow, helped their neighbors through hard times, contributed to the community that had welcomed them. The ranch they had started with 40 acres grew to over 200, with a sizable herd and a reputation that extended beyond Colorado. When Samuel was 18, he met a young woman at a community dance. Her name was Emma, and she was smart, kind, and completely unafraid of hard work. Sarah watched her son fall in love and remembered her own journey to finding Marcus. She gave Samuel the same advice Marcus had once given her. Judge people by their character and their actions, not by what others say about them. Samuel and Emma married the following year, and Marcus helped his son build a house on the far end of the property. The ranch was big enough to support 2 families now, and Marcus was happy to share the work and the land with his son. Mary, at 16, announced she wanted to attend normal school to become a teacher. Sarah and Marcus supported her dream, even though it meant she would be away for 2 years. They scraped together the tuition money and sent her off with their love and encouragement. Thomas, at 14, was still trying to figure out what he wanted. He loved the ranch but also talked about seeing the world beyond Colorado. Marcus told him there was no rush, that he had time to decide his path. One evening, after a long day of work, Sarah and Marcus sat on their porch as they had done thousands of times before. They were both in their mid-40s now, still healthy and strong but feeling the years of hard work in their bones. We made it, Sarah said softly. We built everything we dreamed of and more. We did. And the best part is it is not finished. The story keeps going. Our kids will have their own stories, their own dreams, maybe grandchildren someday. Marcus took her hand, his touch as familiar and comforting as ever. I never thought I would get to have this. A real family, a legacy, people who will remember me with love instead of shame. Sarah's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. Thank you for giving me a chance. Thank you for taking that chance. Thank you for being brave enough to meet me at the livery stable. Thank you for loving me even when you had every reason not to trust any man ever again." Marcus squeezed her hand. "We saved each other, Sarah. That is what love does." They sat together as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The ranch was quiet, the cattle settled for the night, the horses drowsing in the pasture. Inside the house, they could hear Thomas moving around, probably getting into something he should not. "Our life has been good," Sarah said, "better than I ever imagined it could be. And it will keep being good. We will keep building, keep growing, keep loving each other and our family." Marcus stood and pulled Sarah to her feet. "Come on, Mrs. Murphy. Let us go inside and see what our youngest is getting into now." Sarah laughed and let Marcus lead her inside, into the warm light of the home they had built together, into the life they had created from nothing but determination and love. The past, with all its pain and shame, was truly behind her now. What lay ahead was family, community, and the enduring love of a man who had seen her worth when she could barely see it herself. The years that followed were filled with the joys and challenges of life. Mary returned from normal school and took a teaching position in Westcliffe, boarding with a respectable family during the week and coming home on weekends. Samuel and Emma announced they were expecting a baby, making Sarah and Marcus grandparents for the first time. Thomas decided to stay on the ranch, finding his purpose in breeding horses, a venture that proved surprisingly successful. When Sarah and Marcus's first grandchild was born, a healthy girl named Margaret Rose, Sarah held her and wept with joy. Marcus stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders, and they marveled at the continuation of the family they had created. "Your great-grandmother would not believe this," Sarah whispered to the baby. She would not believe that the daughter she disowned ended up here with all of this love and family. "Her loss," Marcus said firmly. "We made our own family, our own legacy, and it is beautiful." More grandchildren came over the years. Samuel and Emma had 4 children total. Mary eventually married a fellow teacher, a kind man named Robert, and they had 2 children while continuing to teach in Westcliffe. Thomas married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring valley, a spirited woman named Katherine, and they had 3 children who were as wild and adventurous as their father. Sarah and Marcus's house became the gathering place for the extended family. Sunday dinners were loud, chaotic affairs with grandchildren running everywhere, multiple conversations happening at once, and more food than seemed possible to consume. Sarah loved every minute of it, the noise and mess a far cry from the lonely silence of her life in Denver or the cold judgment of early Westcliffe. On their 25th wedding anniversary, the family threw Marcus and Sarah a party. It was held at the ranch, with neighbors and friends from throughout the valley attending. There was music and dancing, stories told about the couple's early days, and toasts to their enduring love. Miles Morrison traveled down from the mining camp for the occasion, now in his 60s but still sharp and vigorous. He made a toast that brought tears to many eyes. 25 years ago, I hired 2 people who needed a chance, a woman fleeing judgment and a man searching for purpose. I watched them find each other, fall in love, and build something remarkable. They have raised a wonderful family, created a successful ranch, and contributed immeasurably to this community. But more than any of that, they have shown us all what real love looks like. Love that endures hardship, that grows stronger with time, that creates rather than destroys. Marcus and Sarah Murphy, you are an inspiration. Here is to 25 more years. As the party continued around them, Marcus and Sarah slipped away for a moment of quiet. They walked to the ridge above their house, the same place where Marcus had proposed all those years ago. The view was as spectacular as ever, the mountains eternal and unchanging. 25 years, Sarah said wonderingly. It feels like yesterday and forever all at once. Best 25 years of my life. No question. Marcus pulled her close, and they stood together looking out over the land they had claimed and cultivated. You know what I think about sometimes? That day in the alley in Westcliffe. What would have happened if I had just ridden past? If I had not stopped to talk to you, I think I would have survived. I am stronger than I knew back then. But I would have missed out on all of this, on you, on our children, on this life we built together. Sarah turned to face him. I am grateful every day that you stopped, that you saw me, that you gave me hope when I had none left. I am grateful you were brave enough to trust me, to take a chance on a stranger and an uncertain future. Marcus kissed her, and even after 25 years, the connection between them was as strong as ever. They returned to the party hand in hand, to their family and friends, to the life they had created. As the sun set and lanterns were lit, music played and people danced under the Colorado stars. Sarah watched her grandchildren playing, her children laughing with their spouses, her husband talking with old friends. Her heart was full to bursting. Later that night, after everyone had left or bedded down in various rooms and corners of the house, Sarah and Marcus lay in their bed, exhausted but happy. Thank you, Sarah whispered in the darkness. For what? Marcus asked, his voice drowsy. For everything. For seeing past the shame and the scandal, for believing in me, for building this life with me, for loving me every single day for 25 years. Sarah's voice broke slightly. For making me happier than I ever thought possible. Marcus rolled to face her, his hand finding hers in the dark. Thank you for letting me love you, for trusting me with your heart after it had been broken, for giving me children and a home and a purpose, for being my partner in everything. I love you, Sarah. Today, tomorrow, and forever. They fell asleep holding hands as they had done for 25 years, as they would continue to do for all the years to come. Marcus and Sarah Murphy lived into their 70s, a remarkable age for that time and place. They remained active on the ranch, though gradually handing over more responsibilities to Samuel and Thomas. They became beloved grandparents and eventually great-grandparents, the patriarch and matriarch of a large, thriving family. The story of their meeting and marriage became legend in the valley. Young people who felt lost or judged would be pointed toward the Murphy Ranch, told the story of Sarah who had been shamed by a whole town but found redemption and love through her own courage and the kindness of a good man. The story of Marcus who had been drifting and purposeless until he found his reason to stay in the woman everyone else rejected. When Sarah was 72, she became ill. The doctor in Westcliffe was kind but honest. Her heart was failing, weakened by decades of hard work and the high altitude. There was nothing to be done except make her comfortable. The family gathered. Her children, now middle-aged themselves, came with their own children and grandchildren. The house was full of people who loved her, who existed because she had been brave enough to divorce a cruel man and start over. Because she had been strong enough to trust again after being broken. Marcus barely left her side. He held her hand, talked to her, reminded her of all their years together. Even in her weakness, Sarah smiled. I am not afraid, she told him one evening when they were alone. I have lived a full life. I have been loved and I have loved. I have seen my children grow and thrive. I have been part of something good. That is more than most people get. I am not ready to let you go, Marcus said, his voice rough with unshed tears. I know, but you will be all right. You are strong. The family is strong. You will keep going, keep building, keep loving. Sarah squeezed his hand with what little strength she had. Promise me something, anything. Promise me you will remember the good times, the laughter, the joy, the love. Do not let grief consume you. Live fully until we meet again. I promise, Marcus whispered, tears finally falling. Sarah passed away peacefully 2 days later, surrounded by her family, in the house that she and Marcus had built together. She was buried on the ridge above the ranch, the place where Marcus had proposed, with a view of the mountains she had loved. The whole valley turned out for the funeral. People spoke of her kindness, her strength, her cooking, her wisdom, her love for her family. But the most moving tribute came from Marcus, who spoke last. Sarah Katherine Murphy was my wife for 48 years. She was the mother of my children, the heart of our home, my best friend and truest love. When I met her, she was broken by the cruelty of others but not defeated. She showed me what real courage looks like. She taught me that love is a choice we make every day, not just a feeling but an action. She gave me a life worth living and a family worth building. I will miss her every moment of every day for the rest of my life. But I will not dishonor her memory with endless grief. She wanted me to keep living, keep loving, keep building, and that is what I will do. Marcus lived for 5 more years after Sarah's passing. He remained active in the ranch and the family, becoming a source of wisdom and stability for his children and grandchildren. He never remarried, telling anyone who asked that he had already had the great love of his life and needed no other. On a clear autumn morning, very similar to the morning he had proposed to Sarah so many decades before, Marcus walked up to the ridge where she was buried. He sat beside her grave, talking to her as he often did, telling her about the family news and how much he missed her. His youngest grandson found him there a few hours later, passed away peacefully with a slight smile on his face. The doctor said his heart had simply stopped, worn out from decades of hard work and 5 years of missing his beloved wife. They buried Marcus beside Sarah on the ridge, under the big sky they had both loved. The family grieved but also celebrated a life well lived and a love that had endured everything thrown at it. The Murphy Ranch continued for generations, each new generation hearing the story of Sarah and Marcus. The story of how a divorced woman, shamed by her community, found refuge and love with a cowboy who saw her worth. How together they built something enduring, a family, a home, a legacy. In time, Westcliffe itself changed. The people who had judged Sarah so harshly were replaced by new generations who knew the Murphy family only by their contributions to the valley. The shame and scandal of Sarah's divorce faded into irrelevance, while the love story of Sarah and Marcus became the stuff of local legend. The house they built stood for over 100 years, eventually becoming a historical site maintained by their descendants. People would tour it and hear the story, how it started with a chance meeting in an alley, a cowboy's kindness, a woman's courage, and a love that transformed both their lives. Samuel and Emma's line continued the ranch. Mary and Robert's descendants became teachers and educators throughout Colorado. Thomas and Katherine's children spread throughout the West, carrying the Murphy name and the stories of their grandparents. Every year on the anniversary of Marcus and Sarah's wedding, the extended family would gather at the ranch for a reunion. They would visit the graves on the ridge, tell the old stories to the new generation, and celebrate the love that had started it all. The story of Marcus and Sarah Murphy became more than just family history. It became a testament to the power of second chances, of seeing people for who they truly are rather than what society says about them, of building something beautiful from the ruins of a painful past. In the end, the town that had shamed Sarah for being divorced was forgotten by history. But the fearless cowboy who said her past brought her exactly where she needed to be, and the brave woman who believed him became immortal. Their love story was passed down through generations, inspiring others to be kind, to be brave, to believe in second chances, and to never give up on love. The mountains where they built their life remained unchanged, eternal witnesses to the truth that real love, the kind that endures and transforms, is the most powerful force in the world. And somewhere in the wind that blows through the valley, in the creek that still runs through the Murphy Ranch, in the land that has nourished generations of their family, the love of Sarah and Marcus Murphy lives on.